The story of the flood is more than a religious tale. It is one of the most puzzling and mysterious accounts in all of human history. What truly happened before this massive disaster? What information has been lost from ancient records? And why do so many civilizations across the world share stories that sound almost identical about a worldwide destruction? The Bible and ancient Jewish writings describe a world that existed before the flood, a world that had become deeply corrupted beyond repair. Yet very few people today dare to look closely into the details of this dark chapter in humanity's past. What pushed that early world toward destruction? Who or what lived on Earth during that time? What kinds of knowledge were erased forever when the waters swallowed entire civilizations? In this video, we will explore the hidden history of humanity before the flood. We will examine the sins, terrors, and strange forces that shaped this forgotten age. If you are also fascinated by mysteries of the ancient world, then leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. The mysterious world before the flood, the forbidden topic. The story in the book of Genesis begins with the creation of humanity through Adam and Eve. It continues with the spread of human life and the birth of original sin after the failure in the Garden of Eden. From that moment on, humanity began facing its own corruption and wrongdoing, problems that grew worse over time. Even long after the fall, the Bible describes a society that kept drifting farther and farther away from the ways of God. Many secrets and unknown details from this era remain hidden from most people today, understood only by those who dedicate themselves to deep study of the scriptures. Alongside the biblical text, scholars and researchers also turn to ancient Jewish writings to better understand these early events. These writings help expand the knowledge passed down by the ancient Jewish people. Among the notable events from this time are stories involving fallen angels, dark spiritual beings, and practices connected to forbidden magic and sorcery. These accounts show a world falling deeper into chaos and moral decay. This growing corruption eventually led to such an extreme level of wickedness that it brought about the Great Flood in the days of Noah, a historic turning point that represented both God's judgment and the chance for a new beginning. According to Scripture, the first family line to populate the earth came from Adam. One of the major branches of this family tree came from Cain. Because of his grave wrongdoing, Cain lived in rebellion against God, and many of his descendants followed a path filled with pride and separation from the Lord. Although some of Cain's descendants became talented people, musicians, craftsmen, and experts in many skills, tradition teaches that most of them did not worship the God of Adam. However, some scholars believe that a few individuals from this line may have remained faithful. Even so, the widely accepted understanding is that Cain's lineage as a whole moved away from God. However, most scholars agree that Cain's descendants inherited his rebellious nature. Their behavior reflected the heart of the man who committed the first murder in human history, Cain, who coldly took the life of his own brother Abel. But beyond Cain's family line, there was another lineage, the line of Seth, Adam's youngest son, who was viewed as Adam's true spiritual successor. Unlike Cain's descendants, the people from Seth's lineage began their history by remaining loyal to God, calling on his name and giving him glory. From Seth's family came humanity's first prophet, Enoch. He was a righteous man who lived before the flood and openly warned the world about its growing corruption. Enoch preached against evil and spoke of the judgment that would fall on those who turned away from God. Although Seth's descendants were pure and devoted for many generations, they eventually also fell into sin. Over time, they strayed from God just as Cain's descendants had. According to the book of Genesis, chapter 6, both lineages, the descendants of Cain and the descendants of Seth, eventually mixed with one another. This mixing contributed heavily to humanity's increasing corruption and became one of the main reasons the Great Flood was sent. Now, exploring some cultural details of the pre-flood world, there are many lesser-known aspects of that ancient civilization. One fascinating question concerns language. What language did the people before the flood speak? The scriptures do not directly state which language existed at that time. However, we know that before the Tower of Babel was built, The world did not have the variety of languages we know today. Some interpretations suggest that the original language spoken by Adam was the so-called Adamic language. In certain teachings, it is even referred to as the language of angels, mentioned in the New Testament. This sacred language was believed to be the language used by the earliest humans to speak with one another and with God himself. But during the event at Babel, God took this language away. He confused human speech and scattered people across the earth. From that point onward, many different languages emerged, and the Adamic language was never returned to humanity, possibly because people were no longer worthy of speaking it. For this reason, the original language of the first humans remains a mystery, still debated in theological studies and historical speculation. Throughout history, many people have argued that Hebrew or even Aramaic might have been the first language spoken by humanity. But there is no passage in the Old Testament or the New Testament that confirms this idea. The truth is that the original Adamic language no longer exists. What remains today are the languages that developed after the event at Babel, when God confused human speech and scattered the nations across the world. After this, the descendants of Noah's 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, began speaking the different languages that would shape the world after the flood. Another lesser-known feature of the pre-flood era is the incredible length of human life during that time. It's unlike today, where reaching 100 years old is rare and often accompanied by sickness and physical weakness. People before the flood commonly lived for hundreds of years while still maintaining strong health and vitality. The Bible records that certain individuals reached astonishing ages. Methuselah, the son of Enoch, is said to have lived 969 years, the oldest age mentioned in Scripture. This means the population of that ancient world was used to lifespans often exceeding 900 years, something impossible to imagine in the modern world. This extraordinary strength and resilience show just how different the pre-flood world was compared to the world we know now. In Genesis chapter 6, we read that humanity became deeply corrupted, both spiritually and physically. The Bible, along with ancient Jewish traditions, tells that certain fallen angels, who would later be known as demons, took on physical human form and interacted with the women of that era. From these unions came offspring that represented a severe violation of the natural order created by God. These fallen heavenly beings also passed down hidden knowledge that humanity did not originally possess. Their direct involvement with humans played a major role in the increase of wickedness and spiritual decay across the pre-flood world. Ancient sources such as Jewish apocryphal books, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Book of Jubilees, and the Book of Enoch explain that these fallen angels taught forbidden practices, including magic, sorcery, and various occult arts. Some of these secret skills survived through the centuries, while others disappeared over time. Along with this hidden and forbidden knowledge, there were also other forms of corrupt influence that shaped the final days before the flood. These beings are also described as teaching humanity the arts of war and how to make weapons. They introduced the crafting of swords, spears, bows, armor, and other tools of battle. According to these ancient traditions, this era became a time of great disorder, with violence and moral decay spreading quickly across the earth. The destructive influence of these fallen beings grew so strong that it became one of the direct reasons for God's judgment, which ultimately brought about the Great Flood. The pre-flood world turned into a place filled with chaos and wrongdoing, leading God to declare that it had to be wiped clean so creation could be restored to purity and order. When the fallen angels joined with human women, they shared secret knowledge that had once belonged only to them. Because of this, the women became sorceresses, witches, clairvoyants, mediums, and practitioners of mystical arts. With this forbidden wisdom, they began to commit even greater sins and offenses in God's sight. Ancient texts like the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, and the Dead Sea Scrolls, which contain early versions of the Old Testament, describe this in detail. In chapter 8 of the Book of Enoch, it says that Azazel taught men how to forge swords, knives, shields, and armor. He also showed them how to make mirrors, bracelets, jewelry, and decorative ornaments. In addition, He introduced cosmetics, methods for shaping and coloring eyebrows, and how to select and use precious stones and dyes, all of which transformed society. Because of these teachings, evil increased dramatically, immorality spread, and people became more corrupt in their behavior. Other fallen angels taught additional forbidden knowledge. Amalek taught spells and how to use magical roots. Amos explained how to undo enchantments. Baal taught how to study the movements of the sky. Akibeel taught how to interpret signs and omens. Samuel gave knowledge about astronomy. Adel revealed the patterns of the moon. As the corruption deepened, people became ruined and desperate, and their cries rose up to heaven. With all this advanced knowledge, magic, enchantments, and even early forms of technology, the people of that era built impressive structures and established magnificent civilizations. But these societies eventually disappeared beneath the waters of the flood, destroyed because they turned away from God's commands and fell into deep corruption. By joining with human women, the fallen angels produced children. These children became known as the ancient Nephilim, the giants mentioned in early traditions. They were extremely tall, incredibly strong, and greatly feared. Jewish writings describe them as intimidating and unnatural beings. Many accounts say the Nephilim practiced forbidden arts, including magic, and some stories even claim they engaged in deeply corrupt behavior. There are also ancient references describing a war between different groups of giants living on the earth. According to some traditions, the angel Gabriel initiated this conflict, making it one of the most mysterious and debated episodes from that era. These giants represented a mixture between God's original creation and the altered form influenced by the fallen angels. Ancient belief systems say that angels were able to take on physical human form. When they did so and united with women, these extraordinary beings were born. The Bible notes that some of these giants grew to incredible heights, up to around 16 feet, according to certain interpretations. It was during this time that the prophet Enoch delivered an important prophecy. Behold, the Lord comes with thousands upon thousands of his holy ones. Jude 1:14, referencing Enoch. The prophecy continues, describing God coming to bring judgment and to expose the deeds and words of those who lived in rebellion. Jude 1:15, beyond the Nephilim, the animals that existed before the flood were also said to be extremely large and powerful. Some of these creatures no longer exist, and if any still remain, they may be hidden in the deep parts of the oceans. One such creature is Leviathan, often described as a massive sea reptile. In some interpretations, he is compared to a gigantic dragon-like creature with incredible strength, tough scales, and fearsome abilities. The Book of Job offers a vivid and awe-inspiring description of this being. The Bible also speaks of other enormous reptiles, which many people today associate with what we now call dinosaurs. All of these remarkable beings lived before the flood. According to ancient Jewish tradition, the fallen angels descended to earth during the days of Jared, and their arrival caused great disruption among humanity. From their appearance until the flood, around 200 years passed, a period filled with hardship, spiritual corruption, the presence of giants, widespread occult practices, and advanced civilizations holding mysterious and troubling knowledge. Thank you to everyone who has followed this story. This is the history that comes before the Great Flood, a time filled with astonishing events. Please remember to leave a like and share this video with others who want to learn more about Scripture. May God bless you all, and see you soon.